What's up, guys? It's Steve Bracconi with Team Bracconi, back with Alfredo Vastola. Excited today. We've got a pretty good lineup, a lighter topics today and some funny stuff, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about self-confidence with agents, and specifically some agents that I've worked with individually. And self-confidence is a very important thing, obviously in life, but also with real estate, and it comes off to the consumer, the client as well.
Yes.
So you're a prime example, and we didn't talk about this, but when I met with you initially to talk about growing your real estate career to today, it's a totally different.
It's fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, a totally different person altogether. You know, you're still soft-spoken, but you're very confidently soft-spoken. Then you're soft-spoken, but kind of unsure, and we see that a lot, you know, with agents. And I was the same way when you first come into the business. I think there's a couple things, and I wrote them down with experience, knowledge, and the proper guidance.
Yes.
I feel like agents probably overlaps much more than just real estate, but agents in general, real estate agents, can grow themselves in order to grow a sphere of business. And you did it very successfully. And we didn't talk about me asking you this question, but what do you think helped you? And you did it pretty quickly. I think over the course of a few months, you really did a 180, and you've obviously improved since then. But what do you think the biggest factor for you personally as far as getting confidence within the real estate industry was?
It was just the amount of leads that I was able to get, and obviously having the guidance. You know, we were a smaller team then, and I had your ear pretty readily available. There was a little bit of doing things like I think along this topic is of self-confidence is you know the help is there, but you also want to try to do it yourself because you feel like a little bit inefficient or that you know that in order to succeed you have to do it yourself. So I felt like I was being pulled in those two different directions. Like, I have the help, but let me try to do it myself, because if I failed, then I have learned something, I have some experience, but I also have default to the team, for example. So that's why I felt like it was so important to join a team where there was a ton of experience, that I wasn't flying solo, but I was able to also try to fly solo when I wanted to.
And on that note, and I can't speak for every team leader, but I can certainly speak for myself. When agents come to me, a lot of times it's almost an apologetic thing. It's almost, sorry to bother you. I know you're busy, and I'm so thankful that they are actually coming to me. And oftentimes I wish they came to me a little bit prior. We talked about that, because the further down the pike that they go with something that might have been correctable, time kind of kills deals. And if you allow for a situation to escalate and go the wrong direction long enough, it's much more difficult, in my experience, to correct in order to close, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to close the files. So I'm very thankful when agents come, and usually I'll encourage them to come before. Oftentimes I'm not copied on emails, which, in fairness, if we have 22 agents or whatever, it's tough to keep up with all the emails. But I don't know what's going on with every file at every point of the transaction. It's just the reality. I try to keep up and kind of know what's going on a little bit. But if a agent contacts me and briefs me as a team leader, I can oftentimes jump in and do a conference call or an email with a client and kind of get them back on board, or at least explain things the proper way or a more experienced way. Maybe I've dealt with it before and that agent hasn't, and make them feel comfortable to proceed. I think that's one of the huge benefits of having someone that has gone through experiences before. I still haven't seen everything, right? But I've seen enough over 21 years to relate it to something extremely similar. And oftentimes it's nearly identical. But to your point, I think that's a mistake sometimes agents make, in my opinion, is they try to take it on themselves. They try not to bother, quote unquote, bother the team leader. And then it either just completely goes kaput, which hurts both the team and the agent, or they come to get help a little bit on the later side. And it's much more difficult to salvage at that point.
Yeah. I don't know if it's actually, I think I look at it two ways. It's bother, and also wanting to have the confidence or wanting to try to do it yourself because you eventually you have to, right? So it could be both, right? Both things pulling them away from like getting the help that's there.
Yep.
And sometimes it can be difficult to say, I'm gonna bother this person.
But there comes a point fairly quickly with someone like yourself who catches on, who continues to ask questions because they're just very thorough. And I'll say to them, you know the answer, or we've just gone over this, and you knew the answers that 3-4 month mark, right? And that's kind of what we were getting into, is that self-confidence. And I'll tell agents that at that point, and again, it might be 90 days in, might be 160 days in, 180 days in, whatever. Everyone's on a different timeline. But if you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you, you're going to do great. Just have the confidence. You knew the answer. You know what's going on. And yeah, you're not going to know everything. Neither do I. But we can figure it out together. And as long as you portray that confidence and you provide those answers in a timely basis to the client, it's going to be much easier to get them to have confidence in you, not only in this transaction, but to refer friends and family, because that's another whole level of the business. Even if they're like, okay, it was rough, but I got through it and I really liked Steve. But you know what? I don't feel comfortable recommending Steve to my family because it was a little bit too rough. That's not our goal. Our goal is to exceed expectations to the point where there's really no other option. You're the go-to person for any kind of real estate related transaction, right? So I think it's very important that the agent, as soon as possible, adapts and implements that confidence.
Yeah, I think some of that also for me was, reaching out when I like definitely needed to, when things are, there's some things that I can just look up online, and I think agents go different ways. Like some will just ask 1,000 questions when there's a lot of it that could be, available just by doing a little research. So I took more of the doing more research and trying to only ask for help when it was something that you just, a situation that you wouldn't be, you could just look it up, right? So I think that helped me to gain confidence because I started to do more.
You can't look up situations.
Yeah,
it's not. What we do on the team, which we feel our clients benefit greatly from this, and we have a mentorship program. So even if a client gets a newer agent, someone newer to the industry that maybe doesn't have a lot of transactions, maybe even minimal transactions, they're going to be required on our team to have a senior agent accompany them and do most of that work for them while they oversee that, and they work together collectively to make sure that the client interest is taken care of and our fiduciary duties are met, but also to teach the new agent the right way of doing things. We have an agent protocol handbook that literally outlines pretty much every part of the industry, from open houses to buyer showings to listing appointments to the softwares we use to the protocol of returning calls, timelines on things. So, and they have to sign that. The agents that join our team, as you know, have to sign that. You handle that for me. So they sign that and they know what we expect and what we feel as though are the expectations that we need to meet or exceed for the client. And in addition to that, we have live training. They accompany agents at open houses, at appraisals, at home inspections, at showings, at listing appointments. We do team roundtables weekly. We do your Monday evening meetings in addition to everything, which is additional training on topics that you bring in or the agents bring in that they want review. All of that is obviously to better our agents. So we have the best agents in the industry so that they have the highest probability of producing at a high rate, right? But it's also to benefit the client so that the probability of the client feeling that we exceed their expectations and we met our goal, right, and made them happy, they're more than satisfied with our service, we found it to be much greater once we implemented those strategies.
And it hopefully part of it is building their confidence, right? The more we can get in front of them, offer our knowledge and experience and some of the ways to use the tools, the more confident they're going to be the next time they're out with a client. But at the end of the day, it has to come from believing in yourself, and that's kind of the biggest hurdle. I think a lot of agents, even sometimes when they have more success than others, they're going to struggle with the confidence. So, and
it's in waves. We've seen the confidence be basically zero to come. I don't want to say overly confident, but the confidence was off the chart. to a wave that slows down. And it might be seasonal. It might be they got away from the basics that started generating the sales for them, where they got busy and they didn't do the follow-ups, they didn't do the emails, and they didn't do the open houses and the things that generated the sales, right? Because they were so busy.
Yeah.
And then the confidence plummets again. Like, I don't know what happened. And it's the grind. You have to continue the things that brought you the success, and it will. Again, those three things really: experience, knowledge, and guidance. And I feel as though we provide all of that, even with the ISA training that we do, the internal sales agents. I spoke to John, who's on our team yesterday, and he's a newer ISA, and I think, how long has he been here for? Three weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks,
3 or 4 weeks most.
He spoke to over 1,000 clients to date. And I was guessing a few hundred. I mean, I really don't follow what they do so much. I see the calls and all that, but he said he's already spoken to over 1,000 clients. So what would a new agent speak to unrelated to a team? If they just came into the industry, they'd be lucky to speak to 1 or 2 clients in the first 3 weeks.
You can if you're doing cold calling, but cold calling is somebody not expecting you to call them. So majority of them, you're not going to.
You won't reach many people.
You won't talk to them about real estate. You're going to get hung up on.
Right.
And that's what I was saying earlier. It was getting leads right in front of me right away, so I can learn.
And he's speaking to people who have contacted our team with a real estate question or to see a property, and he's returning those calls. So he has a property to reference. So I wouldn't say it's cold. It's warmish.
That's what I'm saying. You could do it with a cold call, but you're not really doing that. You're
different situation.
You're getting mostly no answers, or even somebody picks up, they're busy. Like we usually, they're making warm calls or getting hot calls. As you said, he's talking to about 1,000 people about real estate. That's accelerating his confidence in his ability to be in the industry and have knowledge about what he's talking about. And that just helps build confidence.
Right.
So just getting in front of people.
So he has the guidance.
Making mistakes, yeah.
He has Mike, who's our supervisor, guiding him. You're guiding him. I'm helping him. He has the experience because he spoke to over 1,000 people in 3 weeks, right? And he has the knowledge because we're there constantly. And Mike's in the office, and we're providing him knowledge, both with our softwares and with our experience, right? So it all comes full circle. So the bottom line is the more we can get an agent confident and the quicker that they feel confident, it all is going to benefit the client, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make our clients as happy as possible.
Yeah.
Moving on, I know you had a couple other segments today that were pretty good, actually.
We're going to keep it a little lighter, humorous, but it also will be educational because some of it relates to what you can do perhaps as a buyer to improve your chances of winning a bid, for example. But let's start off with the weirdest home features, because I've seen a few doozies in my day.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so much. I mean, I've seen so many homes. I've seen, actually, in Bergen County, there was a home. It was a great home, but in the center between the foyer and the living room was a huge tree. Do you remember that home? You saw it. It was I believe it was in Franklin Lakes.
Was it growing purposely?
Yeah, it had like a greenhouse roof at that point. It's a very contemporary home, very modern home, but it was a huge tree, and it was a double foyer, so it was probably 20 feet, and the tree was trimmed at the top to fit into the home. And he said when he bought the home, I think it was, whatever it was, 12, 15 years ago, it was a tiny, bush size little, 3-foot thing, 4-foot thing, and it really grew to like whatever it was, 16, 17 feet.
It's amazing. So, I actually don't remember that. Did I see that?
It was pretty extraordinary. What have you seen?
I mean, this is more common, but I think it is, and I apologize in advance for people that have this, but the full bathroom in right in, like, basically right off the kitchen, like not on the side, just kitchen's here, bathroom. I personally think that's sometimes you work with what you have. I understand.
You prefer to see a powder room.
It has to be, powder room is fine because you sometimes you have smaller homes and you need bathrooms, but the full bath, I think, for me, right off the kitchen.
You see that with older homes because I believe the plumbing was, I don't know if it was more difficult or just a cheaper job to pull the plumbing right off the kitchen. I do see that a lot in older homes, especially like, I want to say Capes. You do see that full bath right by the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if we have any agents listening or just home buyers that think things are, feel free to chime in. We'll read them online here. But yeah, for me, I don't know. It's, I can't imagine, like you're cooking, your mom's cooking, you come out of the shower or something. It's a little weird.
I saw a home. It was also in Bergen County years ago where the child had a spiral staircase, which was cool, because I guess the attic was opened up, so his room was 2 levels. But on the top of it, he also had a slide to come back down.
Well, that's
and
cool.
It was right by his bed.
That's cool.
So he basically could slide from studying or playing all the way down to his bed, which was cool. But that was a unique feature.
That's
for
weird
sure.
and cool at
It was
the same
cool.
time.
It was awesome.
Definitely, and I've seen this carpeting in the bathroom. I have a very bathroom theme, but like some people, not a lot, do very weird things with the bath. Like I would not, I never understood, and I didn't see it much, but I have seen it. Carpeting in the bathroom. I mean, what is the thought process there?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna.
Last one I saw was actually green carpeting in the bathroom. I had to take a video of that one. That was pretty good.
I see the last one you put there. So the full bath bedroom open concept.
I've seen that one.
So you're saying that the bathrooms are like basically open to the bedroom. That's very, I shouldn't say common, but I had a home in Scottsdale, and the way that those homes were laid out a lot was it was the bedroom, and you would walk through the closet, and it was wide open to the bedroom. Bathroom.
There's no walk through closet. There was a home I saw, and you just walk into the bedroom, and the bathroom's just there. There's no, no divider. It's just there was a tub, shower, toilet. There was no division.
I was showing a home 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was for my friend who's an investor. So the home needed a little work, but they said it had 2.5 baths. We couldn't find the third, the half bath. We couldn't find. We found the 2 full. One was on the first floor, one was on the second floor. The half bath was a toilet by itself in an unfinished basement.
Quarter bath.
Unfinished basement. There's just a toilet there.
So that's a quarter bath.
I guess that was the So
I don't know if there's a distinction. There's a filter for that in the MLSs, but
we see a lot of odd things. But sometimes it's funny because if you get the right buyer for it, I've seen things in homes that I'm like, it's not necessarily bad. It's just very odd. And that buyer that ends up buying it, if we represent them, think it's great because they have, it's very, it's different.
Sometimes I will reserve my comment unless they make it first, and then I can. Because
everyone has a different opinion.
Everyone likes
unless it's gonna hurt the value, or be an issue with safety or an environmental issue. Then of course we disclose it. But if it's a person, a personal choice, then no. I think your next topic was
the dreaded home inspections. I think sometimes, and this is our job too to guide our clients, but there's some home inspection items that come up that are really not a big deal, and maybe some buyers have misconceived perceptions about them. One that I come across quite a bit, or you had mentioned this, radon. Radon is an environmental item, so even when home inspections are waived, except for the structural and environmental, that's one thing that would always, you want to check for. But the remediation is quite simple. So there are plenty of
if you're exposed to radon for lengthy periods of time, and 4.0 is the limit in New Jersey, might be even the limit in the United States. So if it's over 4.0, it should be remediated. If it's under 4.0, you could still remediate it, make it close to 0. You could be fine. I'm fine with the 2 or 3, right? But I was saying, it's essentially a PVC pipe that's a vent with a filter on it, so you don't get bugs coming in and stuff like that, and a fan just pumping and clearing air out. And usually, oftentimes they'll have a meter on it, so it will register what it is. So I've seen them in excess of 10, 11, 12, especially in New Jersey. Glen Rock comes from rocks in the ground, right? It's rocks moving. But when they put those systems in, more times than not, it's close to 0. It's like 0.1, 0.3. So it's almost a benefit. So when clients are adamantly against a home with radon, it's almost like being against a home, or I'm not going to buy a home that has termites. There's that saying that there either are termites or there were termites.
Same thing you mentioned with the flood.
At some point, most homes with rocks in the ground near them are going to have some sort of level of radon. So even with my own home, I don't have a remediation. I wouldn't be hesitant to put one in, but it's close to 0. But I do test it every year to 2 years because we do use the basement,
Mm-hmm.
and it can change. So just because we purchased it and it was very low doesn't mean it wouldn't get higher. But even if it got higher, I wouldn't panic and sell the house, and I wouldn't have not purchased the house. I would put in a system because I'm familiar with it. So I feel like those type of things, when explained properly,
Yeah.
now you shouldn't say it's no big deal, just move in, you're fine. No, it's definitely carcinogenic. It's proven to cause cancer over lengthy periods of time in some people. Why take the risk? Obviously, put the system in, but again, an acceptable level can be even lower by the proper system put in.
Yeah.
We also see sometimes, especially like above a window sill or above a door jamb, cracks.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's, generally speaking, if there's horizontal shifting, that's no good, right, in a home. And I'm not a structural person, I'm not an engineer, so I just want to put that out there. But we've seen enough homes. But if there's a crack, which is very common above a windowsill, above a door jamb, that's almost always settling, right? Settling of a home, and every home is going to settle to a degree. So you have your inspector look at it, but some buyers are so concerned about that. And when I moved in, my home, multiple homes now, there's usually no cracks because the buyer has, or the seller has painted, they've sanded, which is normal, and then there's no cracks. So over the course of the next year, 2, 3, whatever it is, the home continues to settle in a normal fashion, and you're going to get a little bit of structure, cosmetic cracking, right? So if you see, I have had structural cracking and issues, and that sometimes would be more so, in my experience, in the foundation level, where you have walls that begin bowing and cracking in that fashion, and obviously that's typically no good, where it's not properly bearing the weight. But oftentimes those crackings in the sheetrock can be cosmetic.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good item to mention pre-inspection. Basically when you're searching for a home and you go to the home and you see, don't get turned off because you see a little crack. Oftentimes, you're gonna have an opportunity to do a home inspection, but don't turn away the home itself, right? Don't count it out just because of what you're seeing. Have a professional look at the home.
And the reality is
out
almost everything. Some things, we've seen a few things that it's like, okay, that's you shouldn't buy the home. But nearly always it's correctable with either a reasonable repair, properly done by a licensed contractor, or the attorney could ask for a credit. Maybe you get an estimate and you say, I want to do the work as the buyer. I want to make sure it's done right. I want to use my contractor. I'm going to get my contractor in. I want them to give an estimate that they're going to honor upon closing. And then it's $5,500. I'm going to ask for that credit. And then it's going to be corrected properly. So instead of panicking out of transactions where the buyer was very happy until they saw something, again, there's far and few between that could possibly be, and we'll tell them, I wouldn't, if it was me, that's too much. It's getting into too much. Sometimes with severe environmental issues, sometimes with severe structural issues, where even if you put a new beam in and this and that, we're not sure that's going to correct the situation. It's a little bit more involved. Those are things that, we probably would advise the buyer in that situation. We could find you another home that's going to meet your needs. But most of these other things, a lot of them are cosmetic. A lot of them are electronic. Electric panels need to be rewired a certain way. GFCIs are
actually doing that right now. Yeah.
Done properly, or sometimes, like we were saying, the GFCI will go off on purpose, and then the inspector doesn't know how to reset it. I get calls like that all the time. They didn't know it was under the kitchen sink, or they didn't know it was the bedroom was attached to the kitchen in a condo, which is oftentimes the case. They think it's just broken. So then the buyer's upset and freaking out over this faulty that they might get electrocuted in the bathroom. Meanwhile, it's functioning perfectly. They just have to reset it out of the kitchen. So I think a lot of that is knowledge and being able to explain. And then again, that comes with experience and having the right home inspector. Home inspectors vary just like any other vendor. We've had excellent home inspectors who are thorough and fair and honest, and the reports reflect that. And we've had others that either found nothing when there was legitimate issues, or they made mountains out of molehills that really were correctable, and they made it sound like it's the end of the world. And that's not fair to the consumer either, the client either. If it's correctable and it's a good home and we can get it corrected for them, the objective is that they still want the home, right? So we got to kind of balance that as well.
Yeah, the GFCIs are a good one, because obviously when the home inspectors are doing the inspection, they'll explain what the purpose of them are for, and it's like, oh, I don't want to get electrocuted,
right?
Which is fine. homes came without them years ago, and,
Right.
and some of the older homes will not have that as well because it was not code back then, and the homes are old enough where they never updated anything. So, but they're very inexpensive and it's an easy fix.
Yeah,
So
you go to Home Depot, you have a licensed electrician put it
Yeah.
in, and 30 minutes later you have a GFCI.
Yeah.
So I think what was the next thing?
There was one more that I had,
Oh, go.
the exterior, because we were talking about settlement, structural issues. And this is not to say that what you're seeing is not structural. We'll have some professional, and we have great mechanical contractors that can go in and give a better sense of what's going on. But sometimes you'll see decent sized cracks in the exterior, but they're oftentimes it's the coating on the actual foundation of the home, for example. So that's just simple. That's either a patch or removing it and then recoating.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's more cosmetic.
It's just exactly. So it's cosmetic and not structural.
Yeah, it didn't go into the structure.
Yeah. So I also wanted to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that buyers make and they should avoid when presenting an offer. I think we first should re-explain the process in New Jersey because it is different from different states. So you have that attorney review process.
Yeah, so and it's unique to a few states, New York, New Jersey. There's a handful of states that have attorney review, and basically what it allows is, or encourages, is the buyer and seller to retain attorneys and you can change anything. Literally anything on that contract is a template. They could change names, they could change price, they could change down payment, they could change close date, they could change any terms. So the realtors writing this offer contract is really to create a meeting in the minds so that we can give it to each attorney. And then the attorneys can solidify that contract and bind it. But really monetary compensation also has to change hands. And years ago when I was in the business, I didn't, but some agents would take $1,000 escrow, right? Deposit. And we put it into the real estate escrow bank account. And then we release it to the attorney later because it's necessary to take some sort of value, monetary compensation, to bind a contract. So the agents had an interest to protect their client and try to bind that as quick as possible. I never wanted to touch funds, and I'd have the attorney do it as soon as possible. So that was just my way, but we're not even allowed to do that anymore anyway. So now it has to go to the attorney. But with regards to the mistakes, and even before the offer is presented, I think that one of the misconceptions with getting a good deal is some clients, and I'm dealing with a few now, that they want to offer these really, really low offers without merit with the predication of I'll come up.
Yeah.
And as an agent, I was always very straightforward that, and no disrespect, but I don't care if I offend the party that I'm not working with, in the sense that the offer's too low. My job and fiduciary duty is to represent the buyer or seller that I'm representing, right? So if it's a buyer that I'm representing and the offer is quote unquote too low, my concern is not that I'm going to offend the other party. Yeah. It really is not whatsoever. My concern oftentimes is that it will be low enough that I can't even engage that party.
Right.
So now, exactly right. So let's say you have a $900,000 property and you offer 8 or lower, and it's going to go around 9. That's what the comps show. They have other offers on the table. I'm going through something similar now, and the client wants to offer 800,000. That's completely fine, but the probability of that client countering on something that much lower than they probably already have on the table and they know it's worth. And if I'm the listing agent, I'm telling the seller in that situation, you're better off reducing and trying to get 850 than countering an 800. It's just so out of whack, or 750 in this market meaning things are going oftentimes at or over asking price. And that's where the comps show, right? So the buyer that thinks that they're going to get a better deal by offering this low number, what's going to happen the vast majority of the time is you're going to make the other party feel as though you have no sincere interest. So they're not engaged. They typically will not counter. Even if you come up, which is almost your tail between your legs at that point, because you're countering yourself. So now you went from say 800 to 825 or 850, whatever you want to do. Now you're countering yourself, or you do nothing and never hear back. So if your objective is to secure the property or have at least a chance of securing the property, I strongly advise that they look at the math, the comparable sales, and make an offer based on where the market value is.
Yeah.
And if they want to go a little lower, that's completely their decision. But to go arbitrarily low, just to try, and we'll come up and maybe meet in the middle. In this market in particular, most markets, but this market for sure,
Yeah.
our experience is we don't even hear back.
Yeah, and that particular buyer may in their mind already know that, yeah, I think it actually is worth 875, but I'm going to start at 8. You're better off starting way higher. If you think it's worth 875, you may be able to get it for 865, but you're not going to get it starting at 8. You're going to get it starting at a way more reasonable, so that you can actually now engage them. So that's 100%.
I tell people too, like some of the real estate I've purchased myself personally, I paid way over asking price, or considerably over, but I knew it was a good deal, and I knew it was a good deal. Some of the stuff early in my career that I got way below asking price, I still paid too much. So the asking price has no merit other than the seller and the seller's agent agree.
The data has
so you have to look at the data and make an offer that's reasonable enough based on the data. And in this case, there were other offers. So where are the other offers likely coming in? That's what we have to compete with, right? And if you're not even close, oftentimes the seller won't even reply. They'll go back to the stronger parties and see if they can work something out versus someone who they don't view as being serious. So I just wanted to mention that before we got into the actual.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that I see a lot is waiting too long to sign, because you gave the explanation of the attorney review process. Waiting too long to sign the initial contract of sale. As you mentioned, that contract is really just this is my intention. Let's move forward, and the attorneys are going to be the ones executing it fully to create a binding and under contract.
Yeah, we have to balance as an agent, not pressuring the client in any way, but educating them. So we try to let them know, and I joke with clients that if that bound you to purchase this property, I would be retired. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to close every deal that we write an offer on that the seller signs, it's not even 50% done at that point. Even if they agree to your first offer, it's not even 50% because it still has to go to the attorneys. We hope that another offer doesn't bump us out. We hope that the seller doesn't change their mind. The buyer may change their mind. The home inspection may create an issue. The financing may have a problem. Appraisal may have a problem. The attorneys may say something back and forth that discourages the deal. So it's less than 50-50. So to your point, the sooner, if a client makes a definitive decision that they want a property, they have to come up with a number based on market value. They should be making an offer in a very timely fashion with the agent, and they should immediately sign that and send it over. If you're representing a buyer, you really want to present that as soon as possible. Oftentimes the seller will also deal with the first written offer coming in over others. We just had that. We were on the other side of that recently.
Yeah. Depending on the market, that being the first one there, obviously when, in some cases in a certain price range now we're seeing, highest and best always call. So I don't think it matters, but in some markets where, you're the first one to present the offer and then another offer comes in, they may give the benefit of doubt.
It also is the psychology of the seller.
Yeah.
If I don't want to say old school, but that's really,
so you might get
my father's generation, my parents' generation, oftentimes they'll honor a deal. If a deal came in, it's just my experience, and they shook hands or they agreed at that showing, hey, we'll do this. I have had clients that honor that, even with exponentially higher deals that came in after. They said, no, I told the Joneses I'm going to move forward their deal. I'm moving forward their deal.
Yeah, it gives the seller,
So you want to put the offer in. You want to put it in to get the ball.
Yeah, it gives the seller a little more confidence that you are the most serious about the property, right? So, and if you're first to the table with the offer, even if another one comes in, you either, to your point, they may just honor what they got first, or you get the benefit of doubt and say, you know what, can you come up 5,000? But at least you get that chance. Where the person that gave the higher offer, they're just using that to get you to come up, but that's okay. It happens, but you do have that opportunity, which is that's what you want.
Yeah, if you come in late to the game, oftentimes you're used as leverage, or you're on the back burner until if and when they can't work it out with the first party. You always want to be the first party.
Yeah.
So we always recommend our clients, again, no pressure, but as soon as they're serious and they're ready and they definitively say, I would like the home, you write the offer, you put it in. And so we have seen clients hesitate to sign that contract. Hey, I want to run it by my attorney.
That's what I was going to
Hey,
say.
I want to
yeah.
run it by my father. That's fine, but it literally means nothing.
Well,
Like even first of all, we can't change much because it's a template.
it's a boilerplate.
But
yeah.
even if we could, it wouldn't mean anything because the attorney is ultimately going to edit, omit, or change things on their rider or the addendum to the contract anyway. Our job is just to get the number, the down payment,
terms,
the
yeah.
closing date, the main terms
Basic
of the
terms, yeah.
contract, right?
Yeah.
In front of the seller to see if it's going to be a chance of it being accepted, or they counter and we come to an agreement.
Yeah.
At that point, then you can start fine tuning. And really the attorney is going to be much more apt to do that. And quite honestly, most attorneys that are very familiar or even remotely familiar with New Jersey real estate law, they'll tell the client, I'm not going to review it until you have an agreed offer.
Right.
You know, I don't want to charge you, and I don't want to, if I'm not charging you, I don't want to waste my time. At least get the deal approved and then get it to attorney review.
Well, the attorneys that do constant real estate transactions, they see that contract in their sleep, and they know what it looks like. There's, you know, so when a buyer says, I'm going to have my attorney review it, they're going to anyway, because we have attorney review process. So I always point them to our attorney review clause. But B, they've seen that contract. They know what it looks like, and they're just going to look at those basic terms.
Right.
So, and the last point, and it kind of dives, blends pretty well with that, is kind of having too many questions for seller up front. I oftentimes, let's write down those questions, and all those can be addressed in
100%. Same thing with, hey, would they sell their couch?
Yeah.
Right. Would they sell some furniture? Would they allow us to move in a day early? Like things like that. I say, let's get the home inspection over with, and then we can deal with all that. Let's at least get your main terms together, and then we can try to figure out that. Because if you start making it so complex up front, sellers will try to go with a more simple deal.
Exactly. So that kind of ties into the other stuff, is the more you ask, the more doubt you're sowing into and the seller is more than willing to deal with these things at the right time. But and that also goes to what kind of market it is. If it's a buyer's market, then the seller is going to, feel free to ask. But when you need to be first to the table, get the offer in, and we'll address those questions, during attorney review or even after. So we have a couple more things, but now we're running close to the clock here. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, we'll do the next one, which is I think you had some home buyer preferences that were a bit
little quirky or sometimes odd. Is well, not that. So I often run into bedroom configuration preferences, right? And there's, especially now with low inventory, you have to be a little more flexible. So, and it becomes, especially when you're honing in on one town or even one particular section of a town, and I need to have, a bedroom on this floor and the other bedrooms on this floor. I think some buyers have to be a little more flexible with that. And I feel like sometimes that can be a quirky request, because you may also find that, but not like the house.
And in general, I encourage our buyers agents always to meet with the buyers initially for a coffee appointment. You know that I did that for years. I had my office in a coffee shop, so to speak. So I got a real good idea of what exactly they were looking for. And if there were things that I thought were a little outlandish or not realistic, I would let them know right up front so they didn't get frustrated. I'd say, that's fine. We could try to do that, but that's not the normal home. So what are your absolute musts? And let's start there and work backwards. Geographically, same thing. We talked about that, where I don't care. It could be any of these 10 towns. Well, okay. What's your favorite town?
Yeah.
What's your top 2 towns? Maybe 3. And then within a few weeks, I want to narrow it down from 3 to go to 1. Let's start with your absolute favorite town. Let's see if we can find what you're looking for in that town. And then we'll go to town 2 if we exhaust that inventory and we really just don't see anything we can buy. Otherwise, it's very time consuming, which is fine for the agent. But what happens to the buyers, they get very frustrated. They're running around. And oftentimes, if it's 5, 6, 7, 8 towns, like, the buyer gets confused with what was even what town, never mind what street or what house. It's just too much going on. So we always recommend that they geographically narrow it down to their absolute preference and then work backwards. And same with the bedrooms and where they're located, the bathrooms, minimal bathrooms, the size of the home, the lot, the location. Those are all things that you could change some of those things, but those are the primary things people should be looking at in order to purchase and then work backwards.
Exactly. I think you had mentioned the person that wanted to go at different times.
Oh yeah, I had
But-
a client. It wasn't a condo, and he was very concerned with. I think he worked from home, which a lot of people do now.
Yeah.
And so it was a 2-bedroom, very nice high-end condo. I think it was like 1.2 million for 2 bedrooms. But he wanted to go in the second bedroom where he'd be working, and he wanted to go around like I think it was like 6 or 7 a.m. And then he wanted to go around noon
he
to like
also
1.
wanted to stay there for a while.
Yeah, stay there for half hour to 45 minutes and just listen in the silence to see if he could hear anything. I guess he was easily distracted. And then come in the evening to make sure that if he was working at night or sleeping or whatever, he didn't want to hear any noise whatsoever. So that was interesting because we had to sit there for a lengthy period of time and all three. And thankfully we didn't hear anything.
Oh, you
because it was concrete.
accommodated. Okay.
Yeah. You do what you got to do.
I actually had one guy who was in the opera, and he needed to go into each room and belt out some of just so he could test out the acoustics and make sure he got the right sound. Also, if it wasn't too loud, he had me waiting in another room. He's like, "Hey, did you hear me?"
We'll do it if it makes him happy. I know we had some other couple other topics, but I think that kind of is enough for today. I really wanted to put emphasis on the self-confidence thing that we started with the agent having self-confidence, and that will come with experience. Any agent that needs help with that, whether they're on our team or not, can always reach out to us. We have protocols in place. We have experience in place. We have softwares we could recommend. Our team members are some of the most trained in the industry, and that instills confidence for sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, as soon as that agent has the confidence that oftentimes we have confidence in them, that portrays out. And confidence and being cocky are two different things. But if you can truly be confident and sure of yourself and sure that you can represent the client's best interest, it's only going to assist the client, which in this podcast is really what we're trying to accomplish, is helping the agents be the best they can to help the clients. And our clients are our most valued, such thing in our entire industry. Without them, we have no real estate industry. So
yeah, I think that bodes well for what we've been doing is having a team structure in place so we can get agents to have that confidence as they grow their business. It's hard as a single agent. You have so many things going on, so many different things that you need to have prepared and organized and just to get to the point of lead generation, that having that structure in place can just accelerate getting that confidence that you need to continue.
If anyone needs anything with that, my Instagram's @Braconi or Team Braconi and @Vest Real Estate. So they can reach out anytime. We appreciate it. And I also wanted to mention that I got at least a dozen comments and inquiries last week of people. A couple were agents and a couple were clients and a couple were prospective clients, just thanking us for information and providing this resource. So we appreciate that. They gave us some feedback with the attitude and the confidence thing. So we're going to touch on that as well, with building that sphere around agents and positivity, that I think really helps people.
I think that's the biggest thing, because you get in your own head too when the market changes, and so you have to, that confidence has to be there to even use the tools that are available. As the market fluctuates, you have to keep.
And you got to be even keeled. I always tell the agents, you can't. The highs get you too high, and the lows get you too low. There's going to be waves, and if you can just it's easier said than done, but kind of have that even keel and push through and persevere. And there's going to be we're going to predict the market and everything. We'll do that next time. But there's going to be changes in the market that I think are going to test the souls of agents in a way, because it's not going to be order taking anymore. There's going to be a lot more work involved, which we're excited about. We have the systems in place for. It's really how I took a lot of market share the last time the market corrected itself. I mean, that's upcoming at some point. When exactly, we don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit further. But we appreciate all the advice, all the feedback, all the support, and thank you.
Yeah. And then follow us on our YouTube channel at Team
Please
Braconi.
subscribe,
and have a great day.
Thanks.